Chloe sat cross-legged on her bedroom floor, her small fingers tracing the well-worn pages of her favorite storybook. The golden afternoon sunlight streamed through her window, casting a warm glow that made her feel safe in her little sanctuary. She often lost herself in the tales of brave knights and adventurous princesses, where the heroes always triumphed against great odds. Yet, today the world outside her window felt different. A strange tension hung in the air, one that could not be ignored, even by a child as innocent as Chloe. Her heart raced as she heard the faint sound of footsteps, a scuffle that sent a chill down her spine. The noise grew louder, and without warning, the peaceful atmosphere of her home shattered as the unmistakable sound of a door being forced open echoed through the hallway. Chloe's breath caught in her throat, and she instinctively squeezed her eyes shut, hoping that somehow the intruders would just go away. But deep down, she knew that hiding wouldn't solve anything. Before she could fully process the fear gripping her chest, Chloe remembered her mother's voice, calm and soothing, instructing her on what to do in case of emergencies. "If something ever happens, sweetheart, you must call 911. They will help you. Just stay quiet and tell them where you are." The words rang in her mind like a lifeline, and despite her terror, a flicker of determination ignited within her. She glanced towards her dresser, where her mother had left her phone just moments before. With a deep breath to steady herself, Chloe crawled toward it, her heart pounding in her ears. Each movement felt like an eternity as she carefully reached for the device, ensuring that her tiny hands made no sound. Swiftly, she dialed 911, her thumb shaking as she pressed the buttons. With the phone pressed to her ear, she whispered into the receiver, "Please help me. There are bad guys in my house." Before the dispatcher could respond, Chloe held her breath, her body tense with fear as she heard the muffled voices of the intruders downstairs. They were getting closer, and she had to remain silent. The weight of the situation bore down on her small shoulders, but she remembered her mother's reassurances. "You are brave, Chloe," she had said, often reminding her of the strength that lay within. As she crouched in the corner of her room, Chloe could hear the robbers' footsteps echoing through the house, the sound of their laughter chilling her to the bone. She pressed the phone tighter against her ear, her heart racing as she listened to the calm voice of the dispatcher on the other end. "Can you tell me your name?" the dispatcher asked gently, her voice a beacon of hope in Chloe's dark moment. "My name is Chloe," she whispered back, feeling a swell of courage. "I'm 7 years old, and I'm hiding in my room." The dispatcher urged her to stay quiet and assured her that help was on the way. That reassurance bolstered Chloe's resolve as she clutched the phone tightly, her body trembling as she listened to the chaos outside her door. As the minutes dragged on, every second felt like an eternity. Chloe's imagination raced as she pictured the robbers, their faces twisted in greed and malice. She thought of her parents, who were downstairs, completely unaware of the danger creeping into their home. She felt a pang of guilt for not warning them, but the dispatcher's voice kept her grounded. "Stay quiet, Chloe. I need you to listen to me carefully. Can you see where they are?" Chloe strained to hear the sounds from the hallway, her instincts kicking in. "They're there in the living room now," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I think they want to go into my mom and dad's room." Panic surged through her, but she quickly reminded herself to remain calm. "Please hurry," she pleaded, her voice trembling. The dispatcher reassured her, promising that help was on the way. Chloe could hear the sirens in the distance, a sound that filled her with both dread and hope. She had done it. She had called for help. But just as she began to feel a glimmer of relief, a loud crash resonated through the house, sending her heart racing once more. Time seemed to freeze as she held her breath, listening intently. The robbers were getting closer, and she could hear their footsteps approaching her parents' bedroom. Chloe's mind raced with thoughts of her family, her mother's warm embrace, her father's comforting presence. She couldn't let anything happen to them. The dispatcher, sensing her fear, spoke soothingly into the phone, reminding her to stay quiet and wait for the police. Chloe nodded, even though the dispatcher couldn't see her. She focused on the sounds around her, determined to stay aware and alert. The tension in the air thickened as the robbers reached her parents' door. Chloe's heart pounded in her chest, a drumbeat of fear that threatened to drown her. But she held on to hope, staying connected to the dispatcher, who had become her lifeline in this moment of terror. Suddenly, the sound of sirens grew louder, piercing through the fear that enveloped the house. Chloe's heart soared as she realized that help was almost there. The robbers, seemingly unaware of the approaching danger, continued their attempts to break into her parents' room. Chloe could hear them grumbling angrily, their impatience palpable. "Please, please hurry," she whispered into the phone, her voice barely a whisper. "They're trying to get in." The dispatcher remained calm, her voice steady and reassuring. "Help is on the way, Chloe. You're doing great. Just keep listening, and we'll get through this together." Chloe nodded again, her determination solidifying as she envisioned the police officers bursting through her front door, ready to protect her family. The seconds felt like hours as she waited, her heart racing with anticipation and fear. Would they make it in time? Just then, the sound of splintering would echoed through the house as the robbers finally forced their way into her parents' bedroom. Chloe's breath hitched in her throat, panic rising again. She felt tears prick at her eyes, but she fought them back, reminding herself of her mother's words. With the dispatcher's calm guidance still in her ear, Chloe focused on the sounds around her, waiting for the moment when her bravery would pay off. Soon, she could hear the unmistakable sound of police radios crackling to life, voices shouting commands as they entered the house. "Police! Everyone, stay where you are!" the officers shouted, their voices filled with authority. Chloe felt a rush of relief wash over her, a wave of hope that surged through her small frame. In that moment, everything seemed to shift. The robbers, caught off guard by the sudden presence of law enforcement, began to panic. Chloe listened as the officers shouted instructions, commanding the intruders to surrender. The tension in the air was palpable, and Chloe could almost feel the fear radiating from the robbers. With her heart pounding in her chest, Chloe remained hidden in her room, the phone still pressed to her ear. The dispatcher continued to reassure her, guiding her through the last moments of uncertainty. "You're safe now, Chloe. Just stay quiet and wait for the officers to come to you." Chloe nodded, even though the dispatcher couldn't see her. She had done everything she could, and now it was up to the police to take control. The sound of handcuffs clicking and the muffled voices of the officers filled her with a sense of safety, a feeling she hadn't experienced since before the chaos had begun. As the door to her room creaked open, Chloe's heart raced once more. She held her breath, her small frame trembling with anticipation. Would she finally be safe? Would her family be okay? The sight of the officer standing in her doorway brought a rush of relief flooding through her. He crouched down to her level, his expression kind and reassuring. "Hey there, kiddo. You did a great job. Can you tell me your name?" Chloe finally exhaled, the weight of the world lifting from her shoulders. "I'm Chloe," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes as the reality of what had just happened began to sink in. The officer smiled warmly, his presence a comforting balm in the aftermath of fear. "Chloe, you were so brave. Because of you, we were able to get here in time to help your family." In that moment, Chloe realized the weight of her own courage. She had faced her fears and taken action when it mattered most. Though the day had begun with a simple story, it had transformed into a tale of bravery and resilience, one that would be etched into her memory forever. As the officer led her out of her room and into the safety of her family's embrace, Chloe felt a sense of pride swelling within her. She had saved her family, and in doing so, she had discovered the true strength that lay within her small frame. The events of that day would forever change Chloe's life, but as she hugged her parents tightly, she knew that she had not only protected them, but also forged a new path for herself. A path filled with bravery, love, and the unwavering belief that even the smallest voices can make the biggest difference. As the officer led her out of her room, Chloe's heart swelled with a mix of relief and pride. The chaos that had unfolded in her home seemed to fade into the background, replaced by the comforting warmth of her parents' arms. They enveloped her in a protective embrace, their love a shield against the fear that had gripped her just moments before. "Oh, Chloe, we were so worried," her mother exclaimed, her voice trembling with emotion as she held her daughter tightly. The relief in her voice mirrored the flood of emotions that coursed through Chloe. Fear, anxiety, and now, gratitude. "I called 911, Mommy," Chloe said, her voice small but steady. "I was scared, but I remembered what you told me." Her father knelt beside her, his eyes filled with tears as he ruffled her hair affectionately. "You were so brave, sweetheart. We're so proud of you. You saved us." Chloe's chest puffed out with pride at their words. In the midst of the fear, she had acted, and now she felt a sense of empowerment that she had never experienced before. The police officer, still present, observed the tender moment with a smile. "Chloe, you showed incredible courage today," he said, his voice warm and encouraging. "You listened, you stayed calm, and you made the right choice. You're a hero." The word hero sent a shiver of disbelief through Chloe. A hero? She was just a little girl who had been scared in her own home. But perhaps in that moment, she began to understand that bravery came in many forms. It wasn't about being fearless. It was about acting in the face of fear. As her parents pulled back slightly, allowing Chloe to see their expressions clearly, she noticed the flicker of pride that danced in their eyes. They looked at her as if she had accomplished something monumental. It filled her with warmth, a feeling that enveloped her like a cozy blanket. The officer continued to speak, his tone serious yet gentle. "Chloe, can you tell me what happened? I want to make sure we have all the details." Chloe nodded, her heart still racing. "I was in my room, and I heard them come in. They were loud, and I got scared. But I remembered you told me to call 911 if I was ever in trouble." She hesitated for a moment, the gravity of the situation settling back in. "They were trying to get into your room, and I didn't want them to hurt you." Her mother knelt down, holding Chloe's hands in hers. "You were so brave to think of that, honey. We're so grateful you called for help." Chloe felt a swell of emotion rise within her, the gravity of her actions hitting her anew. "I just didn't want anything bad to happen," she confessed, a tear slipping down her cheek. The officer nodded, his expression understanding. "You did everything right, Chloe. Because of your quick thinking, we were able to stop them before they could get to your parents." Chloe's mind raced back to the chaos she had heard, the sounds of the intruders, their laughter, and the way they had forced their way into her home. She shuddered slightly at the memory, but the warmth of her parents' embrace pushed the fear aside. "Are they gone now?" she asked hesitantly. "Yes, they are in custody," the officer assured her. "You and your family are safe now. We're going to make sure you stay safe." Chloe's heart felt lighter at the news. She glanced around her home, which had felt so threatening just moments ago. Now, it was filled with the presence of the police officers who had come to protect her family and the love of her parents, grounding her in the reality that they would get through this together. As the officer spoke to her parents, discussing the next steps and ensuring they understood what had happened, Chloe's mind began to wander. She thought about her favorite stories, the ones that had always filled her with dreams of adventure and bravery. She had never imagined that she would be the one living such a story, a real-life tale of courage and resilience. "Chloe," her mother said gently, drawing her attention back. "We're going to sit down together and talk about everything, okay? You can tell us all about what happened, and we can make sure you feel safe." Chloe nodded, taking comfort in her mother's words. She appreciated the thought of being able to share her experience, to unravel the tangled emotions that had filled her heart. The officers continued their work, documenting details and ensuring the house was secure. As Chloe sat on the couch, her parents beside her, she felt a sense of calm wash over her. The adrenaline that had coursed through her during the ordeal began to ebb, leaving behind a sense of clarity. "Can I ask you something?" Chloe said, her voice small. "Of course, sweetheart," her father replied, leaning in closer. "Will we be okay?" she asked, glancing between her parents, seeking reassurance. Her mother smiled softly, brushing a strand of hair behind Chloe's ear. "Yes, my love, we will be okay. You were so brave today, and we're going to be just fine." The officer added, "We'll make sure to keep an eye on your neighborhood for a while, too. You all deserve to feel safe in your home." Chloe felt a wave of gratitude toward the officer and the police force. They had come, just as she had hoped, and they had saved her family. She realized that bravery could come in many forms, not just in her calling 911, but also in the courage of those who protect others. As the conversation continued, Chloe shared her story, recounting every detail, the sounds, the fears, and her decision to act. Her parents listened intently, their expressions a mix of pride and concern. They didn't interrupt. Instead, they embraced her words, absorbing the reality of what had transpired. When she finished, her mother pulled her close, rocking her gently, as if to erase the remnants of fear that still lingered. "You are our hero, Chloe. You saved us." Chloe smiled through her tears, feeling a warmth spread through her heart. She had acted in a moment of fear, and now she was surrounded by her family, safe and sound. "Can I tell my friends at school?" Chloe asked, her curiosity piqued. "Of course," her father replied, a chuckle escaping his lips. "But remember, this is a serious thing that happened. You can tell them how brave you were, but maybe leave out the scary parts for now." Chloe nodded, understanding the importance of her experience while also recognizing the need to protect herself from revisiting the fear. She wanted to share her story, to inspire others just as she had been inspired by the heroes in her storybooks. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow through the living room, Chloe felt a sense of tranquility settle over her home. The officers finished their investigation, reassured her family once more, and prepared to leave. "Remember, Chloe," one of the officers said, kneeling down to her level again. "If you ever feel scared or unsafe, don't hesitate to call us. You did the right thing today, and we're always here to help." Chloe nodded, her heart swelling with gratitude. "Thank you for saving us." As the officers departed, Chloe turned to her parents, who were still wrapped around her in a protective embrace. For the first time since the chaos erupted, she felt a sense of peace wash over her. "Can we read my favorite story together?" she asked, eager to return to the comfort of her beloved tales. Her parents exchanged a glance, a silent understanding passing between them. They nodded, both relieved and proud of their brave daughter. "Of course, Chloe. Let's sit down and read," her mother said, settling in beside her. As they opened the storybook together, Chloe nestled comfortably between her parents, the familiar words wrapping around her like a warm blanket. She felt safe, loved, and supported, a real-life hero in her own right. With each turn of the page, Chloe let the worries of the day fade, allowing herself to be drawn back into the magical world of knights and princesses, where bravery was celebrated and love always triumphed over fear. If this story is touching your heart, make sure to comment from where you are hearing this amazing story. In that moment, as the first words of her favorite tale began to unfold, Chloe knew that in the face of adversity, she had discovered something profound within herself. She had not only saved her family, but she had also embraced the strength that lay dormant within her, a strength that would guide her in the days to come. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a serene glow over their home, Chloe's world felt right again, filled with the promise of new adventures, love, and the unwavering courage she had found when it mattered most. As the first words of her favorite tale began to unfold, Chloe felt the comforting weight of the book in her hands, the familiar illustrations sparking warmth and nostalgia. She glanced at her parents, who sat close, their presence a fortress against the shadows of the day. "Once upon a time," her mother began, her voice soft and melodic, "in a kingdom far away, there lived a brave little knight who faced all sorts of challenges." Chloe leaned in closer, her heart swelling as she listened to the story. The knight's adventures mirrored her own experience, each battle fought with courage and determination. As the tale unfolded, Chloe imagined herself in the role of the knight, wielding her own sword of bravery, defending her castle, her home, against any foe. With every turn of the page, the tension of the day began to ease, replaced by the enchanting world of imagination. Chloe found herself lost in the narrative, the characters leaping to life as they faced dragons and treacherous paths. The vibrant illustrations danced before her eyes, drawing her deeper into the story, where bravery was rewarded and love always conquered fear. Her father chimed in, adding sound effects and playful voices that made the characters even more vivid. Laughter bubbled between them, filling the room with joy, a stark contrast to the silence that had enveloped their home just hours before. As the night triumphed over the dragon, Chloe felt a surge of empowerment. "Just like me," she whispered to herself, remembering how she had faced her own dragon today. She had been scared, yes, but she had acted, had fought for her family with her voice. When the story came to a close, her parents exchanged glances filled with pride, their eyes sparkling with love. "You know, Chloe," her mother said gently, brushing Chloe's hair back, "you showed us all what it means to be brave today. Sometimes heroes don't wear capes, they just act when it counts." Chloe smiled, her heart swelling with happiness. "Just like the night," she exclaimed, feeling the warmth of her family's love wrap around her like a protective cloak. "Exactly," her father agreed, pulling her into a hug. "You've taught us that bravery comes in all forms, even from a little girl like you." Chloe's cheeks flushed with a mix of pride and bashfulness. She had never thought of herself as a hero before, but now she felt a sense of belonging to that title. Perhaps she could inspire others, just as the characters in her beloved stories had inspired her. As the night deepened, the three of them settled into a comfortable rhythm, sharing stories and laughter, the earlier events fading into the background. Chloe felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude, not just for the safety of her family, but for the love that surrounded her. Later that evening, as Chloe slipped into bed, her heart still full of the day's adventures, she hugged her teddy bear tightly. The shadows in her room felt less daunting now, illuminated by the soft glow of her nightlight. She closed her eyes, imagining herself as the brave knight, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. In her dreams, she discovered new worlds where she could be both a hero and a friend, where bravery was celebrated, and every act of courage, no matter how small, was acknowledged. And when morning arrived, bringing with it the light of a new day, Chloe woke up with a renewed sense of purpose. She knew that she would carry the lessons of the day with her, not just as memories, but as a guiding force in her life. With her heart full and her spirit unyielding, Chloe embraced the promise of new adventures, determined to be the brave little knight not just in her stories, but in every moment of her life. She understood now that courage came in many forms, and sometimes it was the quietest voices that made the loudest impact. As she prepared for the day ahead, she glanced at her parents, who were sharing a quiet conversation in the kitchen. The bond they all shared felt stronger than ever, forged in the fires of fear and tempered by love. Chloe stepped into the living room, her heart brimming with hope and resilience. "Good morning, my brave girl," her mother greeted, a smile lighting up her face as she saw Chloe enter. "Good morning," Chloe replied, her voice bright and cheerful. "Can we read another story today?" Her father laughed, tousling her hair affectionately. "Of course! We have a whole library of adventures waiting for you." As they gathered together, Chloe realized that every day was its own story, filled with possibilities and lessons. She felt ready to embrace whatever came next, knowing that she had the strength to face it all, just like the heroes she admired. And so, in the warmth of her home, surrounded by love, Chloe stepped into a world where bravery was not just a fleeting moment, but a lifelong journey, one she would navigate with the unwavering support of her family by her side.